Well, man, it's great to meet you. You are the mortgage guy, and we're living through interesting times here in this post-pandemic era. And I want to start there. So we went through this pandemic 4 years ago. We were trying to figure out how we were going to get out of it. How did you ultimately get through that time period, and how did it change the way that you do business now?
Yeah, it's again, thank you so much for having me. But
Yeah.
to answer the question specifically, COVID and those pandemic times, they were great for business for me as a mortgage lender. Rates had plummeted. Activity was very strong for both purchase and refinance volume. So my time was spent cranking out loans and helping as many clients as I could through that process. So I was, nose in the book every day, just grinding out loans and, helping people that way. It did change significantly where I worked. I went from, working in an office setting most of the time to not being able to, of course. So working from home. And that in turn changed how clients interact with us. You had to learn how to build relationships with clients virtually through email, text messages, occasionally a Zoom call. Um, but it also allowed me to pivot how I work and where I work. Previously, a lot of clients expected to meet face to face, and post pandemic, and it really hasn't gone back to the old way of business. Everything is really done virtually in this electronic world now, which has allowed me to go out and travel and work from, around the world, which has been a wonderful change for me.
I think the whole virtual aspect has really enlightened and helped everybody in so many ways. I know just even with like therapy and things like that that I've done with my son in the past, he's on the spectrum. So it was always like picking him up, loading him up, driving all the way to one place. They spend 5 minutes with him and the rest of the time with me, and then we leave. Now you can do all of these things virtually.
Yeah, it
Um,
does help increase productivity in that way also, right?
yeah.
Like less windshield time and
Uh-huh.
things like that. So absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get to the heart and soul. It's clear what you do to me, but I want to kind of get to the essence of what you do. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade schoolers. It's career day, third graders, and one of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Well, the joke in the industry is that we sell money, which sounds like it's a really, fun job, but it's a very competitive job for sure. So the nuts and bolts of what I do is I help clients obtain a loan approval so they can buy a house to supplement whatever money that they have to put towards that purchase. So I'm the money guy behind the house buying process.
I mean, in most people's lives, that's one of the most glamorous, big ticket items that they'll ever get involved with. It's such a seminal moment in people's lives.
It's why I still do it. It's wonderful to be part of that part of the process. Um, you help create wealth for people. It's been a huge creator of wealth, specifically in the last 10 years after the 2008 crash, have really helped people change their lives financially. And it doesn't matter to me whether, they're buying, a very inexpensive house or a multi-million dollar house. The clients that are the most fun to work with and have the biggest imprint and lasting impression on me are the ones that are engaged in the process. They value the work that you are putting towards them and treat you different than a commodity. So I work really hard to build a relationship with them, and in turn, a lot of them are repeat clients. They refer their friends and family to me, and that's really the biggest compliment that I can get.
And in this big cyclical economy that we're in right now, mortgages and home buying is like the biggest indicator of anything. I mean, it's on the top of the mountain.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of years. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I choose to use 2023 and go out and travel the world and do a lot of self-discovery and growth, knowing that it was going to be a slow year. However, there is a lot of pent-up demand, and expectations are that when rates do start to decrease, we will see a flood of people try and come back into the market. And the the benefit is that rates will be lower, so payments should be more affordable. However, because we've got this 2.5 years of pent-up demand, I really suspect that home prices will pop when rates do come down. So people that are waiting are likely not going to see a payment savings because the prices are going to be higher. So generally, my recommendation is if you're stable in your job, you think that you want to stay in your area that you're looking at buying a house, do it now while there's not as much competition. we can always refinance you into a lower rate in the future if and when rates do change. However, if you can make the payment and qualify, why would you wait and potentially miss out on appreciation, building equity now through the payments that you are making just to try and save money in the future? If rates come down, we can refinance you. That's not a problem, but I think that you might be missing the boat if you are under this wait and see what happens strategy. Plenty of clients that came to me in 2020 and they're like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. And think of how much equity that they left on the table because they were afraid to jump in and really bet on themselves. In 2020, we've seen 30-40% appreciation over the last 4 years. And that's all money that they're going to have to borrow now instead of, having equity in their pocket.
So I would think going into an election, there's all this uncertainty. I mean, the markets right now are reacting. There's all these things. It happens every time, every cycle.
Exactly.
I would imagine by next spring, just because we're done with the big general election, there should be some level of sunlight that's going to spill onto the scene.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the hope and expectation and probably the history. I guess what you have to ask yourself is how much is your financial life going to change between now and a general election? And do you want to be in it now and know what you're going to have, or do you want to wait and see what happens and be subject to volatility that we don't really know? There's no right answer. I'm not telling you
Yeah.
that you're wrong to buy now or wrong to wait, but you just need to know what the um, real life scenario is now versus, you don't know what it is in the future.
The irony of this right now of your answer is that in my history of dealing with, real estate and mortgages, that you guys are really good politicians. You really do lay it down. I mean, you're not blowing smoke, but you're just being realistic about it. And that's the thing I've always really embraced about going into the home buying process is that everybody I deal with is generally upfront and there's nothing weird about it. It's just this is the way it is. And
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
almost, like
that's definitely my approach. Like I can tell you with certainty what your scenario is today. I can't tell you in the future. I don't know
yep.
what interest rates are going to be. I don't know what home prices are going to be. I don't know what underwriting guidelines are going to be or what they're going to allow. Like I can tell you today if you qualify or not. I can't tell you that in the future because guidelines change all the time. So there is uncertainty in this business. And, uh, you know, I think what we learned in 2008 is that no one wins through foreclosure. Banks don't win, government doesn't win, homeowners don't win, economies don't win. So, you know, fast forwarding to 2020 and the pandemic, we did a great job of keeping people in houses through payment deferrals and, things like that, that really solved a potential huge crisis that could have played out very, very differently for our economy and homeowners. Um, so, we have certainly learned from past lessons, but there are uncertainties in the future that we don't ever know.
So let's go back to the third grade. When you were in that position in that
Mhm.
classroom, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
I don't know for sure. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a teacher. I definitely knew I wanted to travel a lot. And I went to school for hotel restaurant management and really never worked in the industry at all until now. I'm a mortgage lender, so I worked in banking and finance, started as a teller, became a personal banker, branch manager, and then changed to residential mortgage lending about 12 years ago. When I say that I now work in travel, after my year of travel and setting foot on all seven continents in 2023, I became a home-based travel agent. So I'm actually helping my clients that I've become friends with through mortgage, booking trips and family vacations and fun things like that. So I'm actually working in the industry now that I studied 25 years ago, but in a different capacity for sure.
So take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were the seeds that got into you to get into banking and to get into this line of work? What were the things that were foundational for you?
Yeah, I grew up in rural northern Michigan, up on Lake Superior in the Upper Peninsula, a small little mining town. And, grit, hard work was really in our blood. It was the only way of life. There was no other options. It was maybe not the most economically expensive area. Even, 30, 40 years ago, there was declines in mining at that point. And I was fortunate because of my parents' jobs that we were able to do some travel over the summer and, go to Disney World, go on an out west road trip. And my eyes became open very, very early that the world is a much bigger place than where I was. So I actually packed up my car, drove across the country 10 days after graduating from high school, and uh, started living a life outside of where I grew up. Now, 25 years later, I can't wait to go back to where I grew up. It's one of the most beautiful, unspoiled places in North America. The Great Lakes are absolutely stunning, and I love it. However, I'm also glad to be from there. I love living in Colorado. The big difference between the two, still have four seasons, both very scenic places. Colorado does have a lot more sunshine than Michigan, especially in the winter. The Midwest is gray and overcast a lot of the time, and I love my sunshine. It's a good thing for my soul. So, yeah.
So in your travels, what's been one of the most unexpectedly beautiful places that you've been to?
So, I mean, you can't not say Antarctica just
Yeah.
because it's such a unique place to visit, and I really had no idea what to expect. I mean, I went to Antarctica not knowing a lot about it. It was never on my quote unquote bucket list of places to go. Not that I didn't want to go there, but I went there because of this quest to step foot on all seven continents in a year. I was blown away by the unspoiled nature, beauty, how high the mountains were just shooting out of the water. It's way more than just ice, and it was stunning. But Norway is probably my favorite destination. I was absolutely blown away by how beautiful the fjords were, how tall they were, how many waterfalls there were, how kind the people were, their way of life. They take an afternoon coffee break every afternoon around 2 o'clock and go meet up with friends at a cafe and have a quick cup of coffee before going back to work and finishing out their day. It was just a lovely, lovely place. As my Aussie friends would say, it was beautiful.
I've always had that sense of like those Nordic that kind of collective. There's just, I mean, even in Spain to have a siesta, there's like this value on every day. Like in America, we just run, 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 which was why COVID and that pandemic time was emblematic for a lot of people because we all got to slow down. We had this self-imposed kind of exile that we got into, but those other countries just know how to live and they've been around. And you realize how young America is when you get over there. Like the antiquity of those places is just dwarfing us and our very limited existence as, a country and a democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Also have come to appreciate our freedoms in America after visiting some other
Yeah.
areas of the world. America is an absolutely beautiful place. And one of the cheeky little lessons that I learned is that, people travel from all over the world to look at what you look at every day, whether, you're in Kansas City, me here in Colorado, Cornfield in Iowa, New York City, San Francisco, whatever the case may be. Someone has traveled and saved up a significant amount of money to go and look at what you look at every day. So how do you get out of that mundane mindset, step back and appreciate what you get to see every day through the eye of someone else? And that story was brought to me by a visit in Africa. It was in the Seychelles, and was on a beach tour. And my tour guide, I was commenting on how beautiful it was, and I couldn't believe how unspoiled and undeveloped this particular beach was. Because anywhere else in the world, there would have been high rises and condos and people everywhere. And there was not a single building. It was down a two-lane road, dirt road, like no access really. And he just was like, it's just another beach. And I'm like, no, this is not not just another beach, I promise you. So that's when I, realized like we all take everything that we get to see for granted, unfortunately. And learning how to step back and appreciate what you have has been really powerful.
Few years ago, we went to Pine, Colorado to a wedding, and we left there and went to San Diego. And, coming from Kansas City, we don't have the bodies of water and mountains and the scenery. So it's all eye candy. But every time I go to Colorado, I'm looking around at the locals and I'm like, do you guys understand what you get to look at every day? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, being not from Colorado, being from Michigan, there are certainly times when I'm driving down I-70 and, coming up out of Denver and you see the mountains there, and like I still never take it for granted. I'm still struck by how beautiful Colorado is. But I just went on a big road trip from Colorado back to Michigan to visit family over the 4th of July. And, driving through the cornfields and seeing all the old barns and silos and stuff, like I appreciated American beauty in a whole new way, and
Yeah.
it was wonderful.
There is that, and I think that's the thing that's so cool about America is it's so expansive. I mean, even one state like Florida to get from the bottom to the Panhandle and Texas and California and all these regions, there's so much land. There's so many cities and provinces and spins, and everybody's proud of their county and cities and where they're at. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly. You could go through multiple countries and other parts of the world and not even hit, two states in the US.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So at the end of the day, who's been a hero for you in your life?
Yeah, I love this question. Listening to some other podcasts of yours, it really made me think a little bit. And, I would go back and say my grandparents. We grew up in an area that was a lot of grit and hard work, and they worked in mines and, you know, definitely blue collar jobs. My grandpa used to keep a daily journal of his income, especially during the Great Depression, and they would track out his cents per hour that he was working, earning in an underground mine. And to see like where we've came from and where I am today and how fortunate I am, it's been remarkable. But I owe so much of that success to them and their hard work.
So, if you could meet anybody right now on the planet that you find inspirational, whether it's in your field or otherwise, who would you love to spend a little time with?
Yeah, I would say Harvey Milk. I'm a LGBTQ member, gay male, and he provided so much visibility at a time when that was not common. And I think visibility in our community is so important. So I would, really love to have dinner with them, sit down and say thank you because I really changed the trajectory of gay rights in our country and the world.
Billy Bean passed the other day, and I didn't realize how involved he was as well. And
Yeah,
that was, wasn't that the movie that Brad Pitt was in that was based on what he did? Or
yeah,
was that?
absolutely.
Okay,
Correct.
that's what
Yep.
I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. And I was just thinking about Oakland because they're getting ready to go to Vegas next year. And I was going to look him up recently because I was like, what's he doing? Because he came up with that whole matrix that baseball used for a long, long time.
Yep. No, exactly. And, having lived in Vegas for a few years, it's so great to see the sports culture change there. I'm not a big sports ball fan. I use that
Yeah.
joke. I appreciate it for sure. And it's like economic powerhouse. But seeing Vegas change from this like redheaded stepchild into this major metropolitan city that's got a lot of respect, has been great to see for sure. And sports has done a lot for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird because I went to Vegas in my 20s. I went with some friends and we were like, we knew that this was the last hurrah before we all went off. Like the Ben Folds song, you all grow up and go on into your lives. And we went through Vegas and they just kind of got that new strip going. But I went recently and a good friend of mine moved out there and I went to the old strip. Wow, it was insane. Like I didn't realize there's an old way that Vegas rolls and it will always stay intact. That old and new world will always mingle together.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's the beauty of that particular city, but also from other cities around the world is how they meld their old and new.
Yeah.
Vegas is a little bit different. They're great at blowing it up and having a big party over destroying their some of their older structures, but it's a unique Vegas experience for sure.
Yeah. So in your work and with what you're doing, and obviously there has to be a big charge for people to like realize their dreams and getting to a better place. But what is it for you personally to get up every day and to do that? Because you have to give of yourself to help people get to a better place, but you also have your own life that you need to keep gas in the tank for. What's that collective gumption for you every day to do what you do?
Yeah, well, it took me a long time. I was identified by work for a long period of my life, and it took me a while to figure out that mortgage is not my why, it's my how. I love serving people and I love helping them through that process, but it's not why I get up every day, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, why I go to work every day is because I do see the value in home ownership and I see the amount of wealth that it's created for people and satisfaction in their lives and pride of, really owning that American dream. Um, However, with that said, I've also learned that, like so many other cultures, work is a means to something larger in life. And I've been really proud to take that journey personally and, you know, so thankful for what I do, the clients I get to work with, the friendships that I formed through mortgage, but also realizing that there is a spin or a switch. And in that approach to life has been really satisfying also.
So when you look back on your career, what was the time period where you grew the most? Maybe because there was difficulties or there was a high level of success, maybe both. But what was that time period for you where you really kind of found your groove?
Yeah, really. So I was a bank branch manager like 2008, well, actually 2005 to 2012. And I was a salary position at that point. And really, partially of it was a choice, partially of it was handed to me, where they're like, we want you to step out and help us rebuild the mortgage division in Western Colorado after the 2008 crash. And going from a salary position to a commission-based job was terrifying. And it's been the best thing for me, both financially. Like I've never made less money than I did as a salaried person, and I really get to control how much I make. There's no limit, but I owe a lot of that success to some personal coaching that I did and really helping me change the mindset and realizing that there's a system to sales and it's a numbers game to a large degree, but also how you get to choose to build business, whether you treat things as transactions or you treat things, in a relationship building sort of way. And that was where the biggest growth occurred. And it's, you know, taken years to appreciate. But looking back, it's that one thing that really changed my life in a way that I never thought possible, but I'm so happy that it happened.
Takes a lot of courage though, because a lot of people, we are creature comforts. We want things, and I mean, and it makes sense. I mean, we want to have that security, but when you step outside of that, there's a great risk, but at the end of the day, there's a great level of freedom and reward that comes with it.
Yeah, and a ton of hard work. I mean,
Yeah.
if I probably worked 10 times as hard to make myself successful than I had to when I was receiving a salary. However, that was time and money invested in myself, and certainly I've reaped the rewards of that multiple times over. I worked for the same company for 15 years, and definitely loyalty was a big part of that game. Um, so, there were opportunities to make changes earlier on, and I didn't take those. I'm proud of the tenure that I had. However, I did make a move a few years ago, and that has worked out wonderfully. I'm very happy where I'm at now, too.
So, speaking of where you're at right now, if you look back on your life, of everything you've done and evolved into at this point, what are you the proudest of?
That's a really tough question because there's a lot of things, and there's been a lot of missteps, things that, you know, you look back at and wonder, would you do things differently? And I've come to the realization through self-growth and counseling and other things that, I can't go back and change the past. So I have to accept and realize that decisions that I made were, tough, but they really were probably the best decisions at that time with the information that I had. If you had different information, maybe you would have gone back and done things differently, but I didn't. So I am who I am today because of those decisions. And, uh, you know, they've made me, who I am. And I'm proud of who I am today, which is, tough for a lot of people to say. If you look at my past, maybe you wouldn't think that I am, but, it's all part of that journey and growth. And I am happy and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
So, loving adventure and loving travel, what's the one place that's on your radar that you haven't been to?
That I haven't been to.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to Alaska for the first time in just a
Okay.
few weeks, and I'm really excited to compare Alaska to Norway because I love Norway so much, and I think there is probably a lot of similarities, but I'm curious to see what that's like. Um, my book is titled Filling My Bucket, A Year of Solo Travel Across Seven Continents. And the reason I titled it that is because I realized very early on in the year of travel that there was no way I could create a list of everywhere that I wanted to see in a single lifetime. Every place I visited was wonderful. There was not anywhere that I wouldn't go back to. So, by filling my bucket, I took it as something that I was trying to check off or complete to something that I'm trying to grow from each time I go to a new place, whether that's culture, food, scenery, or simply like the numerical, like checking off countries or continents like I did last year. So it's a mindset approach, really, travel. And I always get something out of it. So I love visiting new places, going back to old places. It's all great.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that reads your book and knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I love this question, and the reason that I love it is because it forces you to verbalize that confidence that not everyone has. And prior to last year, I wouldn't have been able to answer the question. Currently, I would say that I'm definitely a hard worker. I'm driven, focused, and really that focus has provided clarity about what I want in my life, where before I didn't have that. So, you know, the legacy part or whatever, that's for other people to decide. Their perception of me, I don't control. And although I want it to be a positive one, there's certainly people that don't agree with you or don't love you or um, no longer respect you. And that's fine. That's their opinion. I know at the beginning of every day, I wake up and I intend to do good things for good people and work hard for them in my mortgage career. Um, Personally, I go to sleep at night and I sleep well without a lot of stress in my life, knowing that I did those things. So, how people choose to perceive me or interpret me, that's up to them.
So we get off this call, time machine pulls up. You can go anywhere in the history of time and see one event with your own eyes. Where are you going?
Hmm, that's interesting. I guess I'll say the future. I'm
Okay.
curious where we go in the future. The past we can look at and read and experience, and I think it's so important to do that. That's been a great takeaway from travel as well as experiencing history or going to events where significant historical events happened. I think that's important because you can learn the dangers of repeating history, and that's so powerful. But I think the future is the exciting part, all this AI technology and figuring out how we incorporate that into our lives and what the future holds. If you look back at your grandparents, and my grandparents were born in, the 1910, 1914 timeframe. If you looked at how much the world has changed in 100 and 110 years, I can't imagine what it's going to be like, 50 or 100 years from now. So
Oh,
I'd love to see that.
it's crazy. So if anyone wants to reach out, they want to get your book, they want to learn more about you, hire you, any of the good business, where should they go?
Yeah, so I have a website, mortgageguytravelstheworld.com, and that links up to my socials. The book is available there or on Amazon, Barnes and Noble also. Definitely looking for other public speaking opportunities and really that personal growth and motivational public speaking engagements. So, yeah.
Cool, man. Cole, this has been great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story, and have great travels, man. It's
Hey,
great.
thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you
it.
you bet.